This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, I'm Erica Kesse, your Gold Concierge, and I'm here with Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield.
Yes. Hello, I'm Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield, life and business strategist.
Excellent. I'm so happy that you're here today. We are going to discuss boundaries. We did a video, and I hope that you are able to check that out on communication. Now, this is taking us further into communication and talking about boundaries. So, first of all, let's really talk about and define boundaries. What is boundaries? I know that's a kind of a buzzword now. People talk about you gotta have boundaries, you gotta have boundaries. But what does that mean? What does that really truly mean? So boundaries are things and behaviors that you would like others to do in order to help you to stay or be safe, and also behaviors that you do to help you be safe. They are not rules that you dictate for others to do. It is also your own discipline, and we'll talk more about that because boundaries takes discipline in order to uphold them. And so it's not that you tell someone, hey, I would like this to be the behavior that you do when you're interacting with me. You also have to reiterate it. I say 7 times. I tell people 7 times, even more. It matters on the relationship that you have with that person. But
hmm
Lucretia, how would you define boundaries?
The easiest way that I explain boundaries is that boundaries are those expectations that you set for another person to keep you safe and to keep them safe. And it's almost like having a privacy fence up. Either your privacy fence could be, if you have a lot of acreage, it could be all the way at the end, and then you're keeping people far away from you. But then if you have a more of a privacy fence where people are able to get closer to you, then it's closer almost to your person. But then what you're doing is that you can move this fence close or distance depending on the relationship and the situation. But you have to set the expectation around what your boundary is, their behavior and your behavior, what you're going to do.
So there's a book called Boundaries by Henry Cloud. It's a lot. I mean, it's an older book, and it's
Yes,
been
it's
around
been out for years.
for years. And it is for it is Christian based. Just
Mhm.
FYI to let people know. And so there's other options to review and look at things. But one thing that I know that he mentioned in the book was thinking it, like you said, as a fence that you have on the outside of your house, but also it is allowing someone to get on your front porch, allowing someone to come inside your house.
Yeah.
Because you may have some people that can go to the backyard but can't come in the house. You got
hmm
some people that go to the guest bathroom, can I go to your bathroom in your room, right? Or can I even come into your room? They can go in the living room, they can be in the dining
Yeah.
room. Some folks don't like folks in their kitchen. So it's just
hmm
certain things,
You
right?
setting
These
that
are
expectation.
certain stops for people
Hmm
according to the relationship that
hmm
you put in place, and they understand it. And then you also let them know this is how far you can go with being close to me. So my your inner circle, yeah, they can come into your living room, they can even go into your bathroom in your room, they can even maybe sit on your bed. Some people, but other people can't come sit on your bed and talk with you. Some people can't, they have to always be in the living room. Or sometimes people knock on the door, you don't let them in the door.
Yeah.
I think that people know if you didn't call me before you decided to come over my house, you ain't
hmm
getting in my
Yeah.
house. I'm not even answering the door. I don't know who that is at the
hmm
door. I'm not
Right.
answering.
I understand that whole part. Have the same rule. and
Because if
have
I know you,
I
if
have
I know
I
you,
have
I know
looked
you
out the
lying.
door. Right. I have looked out the door. I have looked out the window and said, "Oh, they didn't call." I'm mm-mm. No.
Right.
But you set that expectation with individuals that they know that you expect them to call before just dropping by.
Yes. And and so this is boundaries. Like people understand it regarding when you put it in that thought process of
Hmm.
let certain people do this, certain people do that, and they understand where they stand with you, and
Yes.
you understand where how far they can go, and then
Yes.
you invite them further in if they ever build a relationship with you that
Hmm.
can get them further and closer to you. Otherwise, they know their place in your
Hmm.
life and how and what can happen. For example, certain things can happen that in the living room, right? You sit and you can chat, and different things
Hmm.
happen possibly in bedrooms than you would do in the
Yes.
living room. So you need to keep the people who don't need to be in the bedroom in the living room.
Yes.
Or so there's just certain things that we already kind of in have our mind. We just have to take that philosophy and use it for all interactions with all
Hmm.
people. People have to
Yes.
know where they stand in all interactions with people.
Hmm.
For example, if an employee has a job description. Their job descriptions are their expectations, right?
Hmm.
And then they are to uphold those things. That's the employer's boundaries. Then there's a code of conduct that's put out, right? Those are the boundaries that's been set and protocols that have been set in place regarding the business. And employees must have their own boundaries on what they're doing as well. And when we talk about that, everyone talks about work life balance and what it is.
Hmm.
Boundaries, it is the employer saying we support work life balance, yes, but it is the employee's responsibility
Yes.
to say, hey, this is what my boundaries are on this. When I at 5 o'clock, I clock out, I'm done. I don't do email, I don't do calls. You decide for yourself what that looks like. I take
Yes.
my vacation on this day. I'm not tapped in. I'm not responding. And
Hmm.
then you have to uphold that. So don't respond at 5.
Yes.
Don't interact while you on vacation.
Yes, you set that boundary for people, and people will understand if you don't adhere to your boundaries, they be like, well, you said you don't answer calls after 5, but I called you at 5:15, you answered me. So the first time you may get, they'll be like, oh, okay, this time, but they'll continue to do it
They'll
because
keep pushing against the
with the
boundary.
like with the expectation that you will answer because you did not hold firm to your boundaries. And there are different, like you could be very rigid in your boundaries where you have no flexibility or bend, or you could be very flexible in your boundaries where people have all kind of access to the perimeter of you and your life. But we have to be somewhere in the middle. Like, okay, I can be flexible on this boundary if it's like, say, you say leaving work at 5 o'clock. An emergency happens. Yes, I can tag myself back in and do what I need to do, then tag myself back out. But emergencies do not happen every day. So having that expectation that I'm going to answer you or do other work after 5 o'clock, when I've said that when I disconnect at 5, I'm becoming a husband, a wife, or part of father, mother. I'm taking on that role. My time with my family is very important, so I don't answer. The expectation is that I will answer you. I will tag back in the morning at 7:30.
True. And let's talk about family. We have to have boundaries around them too.
Oh
Because,
yes.
yeah, because people feel like if you live with somebody, you have access to them anytime you want. When ultimately, no, you didn't set the boundaries around you having your own. I call it be me time.
Hmm.
My daughter, she knows mama's having be me time right now. I'm gonna need 30. I'm gonna need an hour. I'll let you know when I'm back here
Hmm.
to do all that I need to do to be your mother. But I need some time for myself. Go
Hmm.
be with yourself. It's okay. And that's something that but you have to explicitly,
Hmm.
you know,
Express.
say and hold that, right? Because when
Hmm.
she comes in and say, "Mama, can I have some ice cream?" That's all I have to do is look.
And
Do,
she's like, "Oh,
do
yeah,
you
be
remember
me
this?
time."
Do you not remember that this is be me time?
Hmm.
And she goes, and then she comes back later when she
Hmm.
knows that I'm out of my time,
Yes.
myself. She can have it then, or she can ask
Hmm.
me then. But but at some point, if you go ahead and start um, reiterating these things, people
Hmm.
don't push against it, but they
Yes.
will at the beginning push against your boundaries.
Oh
Let's talk
yes.
about people pushing your boundaries. They are going to try it.
Oh yes. Because they're gonna see if you're gonna hold to it. If you're gonna respect yourself enough.
Mm, you just said
You know,
something.
because we talked about it in the other video about integrity to your own word. So people are trying to see, are you going to have integrity around your own word with yourself? So if I say this is my boundary and I don't adhere to it, that gives people the idea, oh, not caring or not adhering to her own boundary, so I can cross that boundary
Yeah, yeah.
because it's
So
happened over and over
ultimately,
again.
it is a case study of you have to respect and honor yourself
Hmm.
to not allow people, and maybe even have it may be a conflict,
Hmm.
that you have to deal with. Some people might
Yeah.
not like conflict, but in order for you to come out having the boundaries that you need, and you mentioned having some flexibility, yeah, you don't have to be completely um inflexible. People
Right.
can be flexible about it
Hmm.
in circumstances.
Yeah.
Um, you look at it as if, okay, I'm going to give this. And you can even say, I'm going to give this today, but
Hmm.
usually I am, not available now.
Yes.
You say it to that person and you say it to yourself. And you actually should be expecting some kind of, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving us your time
Yes.
that you would normally not give us.
Yes.
But let's talk about people who are addicted to helping. If you're addicted to helping, it's really hard for you to hold your boundaries because
Mm-hmm.
you get, just like other addictions, you get a high from helping.
Helping. Yes.
They are the same people. Let me tell you, I'm talking about myself too. Same people who feel like they're being taken advantage of. One minute you want to be helping everybody and giving all your time. Next minute you feel stressed, tired, and everything else because you don't have no boundaries, and you talking about everybody taking advantage of you. Really, that was you not respecting and honoring yourself.
Yes. Your own boundaries and being able to. And the other part of that too is when another person has very good boundaries.
Yes,
You like, oh, they. You may feel some kind of way
speak on
about them
that.
about them adhering to their boundary. I have a really good friend, and she is very good at holding to her boundary. So hers is like I shut off my work phone at 5 o'clock. I do not pick like especially over the weekend. I shut down at 5 o'clock. You can text me, you can email me, I'm not going to respond back to you until 7 o'clock Monday morning. And it's like, oh, she got really good boundaries. But when you are people pleaser, somebody that likes to help, it's foreign to you because you're like, I don't understand why she couldn't help me in this situation. She's gonna help you, but it's gonna be later.
It's going to be based on her time. Our time is
Yeah,
very precious.
because we
I,
don't get it back. You can't get time back. You can't.
and I get to decide what it looks like for me.
Hmm.
So another video that you're going to see that Lucretia and I do is going to be time management, because you have to hold to that too. That's
Hmm.
boundaries. The
Yes.
boundaries around your time. People have
Hmm.
access to you for this particular thing at this time, and then that's it. That's
Yeah.
all they're able to have access at that
Yeah.
moment. But then they
And
can tap in when you have the time again.
yeah. And employers can set, like, if the expectation of the position is that you respond back within 2 hours, if it's if it's a critical situation, and but you've established that the expectation is that if something critical is coming up, or we're working on a major deadline, I need you to respond back in at least 2 hours, or you have to respond back within 24 hours. There's certain things that, yes, that's another boundary that the organization is able to set. It's like we set that expectation, but you have to also let that expectation be known at the
Yes.
beginning of
Hmm.
employment. If that's a rule or a standard, you have to allow people to know. You have to let people know.
You
And
are so right on that, because we get so upset sometimes that someone doesn't behave in a certain way when you
mhm,
never ever told them what the expectation was that you decided for them to behave. You can't
mhm.
be mad at somebody who didn't know.
No,
I
not at
didn't know.
all.
I didn't know that the expectation was I was supposed to be back or respond in a certain amount of
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we, both of us are therapists, we have on our voicemail. If this is an
Mhm.
emergency, call 911. We will get back with you within 24 to 48 hours. We
Yes.
let people know because we have our life that we had a session with
Mhm.
you at this
Mhm.
time. That's your
Yeah.
time. Otherwise, we got other things that we're doing,
Mhm.
our own lives, all the other people that we're seeing, and we do see you. We
Mhm.
acknowledge that you reached out. Yet I can give you the time when I have the time to provide you with this additional support.
Yes.
And like, yeah, that's definitely true with boundaries. So there's a lot of different things about it. Something that I want to walk through really quick is when we talk about from the previous communication video, I feel statements. So I feel an emotion. So we'll say angry when
Mhm.
you squeeze the toothpaste from the middle. I would like you to
Mhm.
squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom so that we can get all the toothpaste up and out that way. Well, that person may say, I like squeezing from the middle, and I want to, and that doesn't sound like something I want to do. In order for you to handle that circumstance, because they do have a right to say that they are not going to abide by your boundary.
Mhm.
Now, I would rather someone tell me they're not going to by my boundary,
Yes.
or then blatantly just not do it, and I have to
Mhm.
address it again and again and again. So this person said, "I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna do it." Well, so then you can set up something else. You can say, "Okay, great. Then I would like you not to use the toothpaste that I've bought that's separate from yours, okay?"
Mhm.
And then there's no you're not there, the circumstance is not even there anymore. Like you are not going to be angry anymore at that person for doing that behavior because you don't use the same toothpaste, right? So
That's
you
true.
are helping your emotion. You're managing your emotion,
Mhm.
and you have let them know what the boundary is. Now, if they go using your toothpaste, it's going to be a whole nother conversation
That's another
that needs
conversation. Yeah.
to happen, right?
They're disrespect. Yeah, they're disrespecting your boundary. Then, yeah,
Right. They just playing with you. That's you need to look at that relationship because they just
right. Because it's about respect. It's about
it
respect,
is
our
a
power
lot.
and control within the relationship.
Ooh, did you say power and control?
Yes.
Ooh, talk more about that.
Well, think when you think about relationships, usually they're on an even playing field where people have the same level of power within the relationship. But then in the employee employer relationship, there are moments where someone in a higher position may have just a little bit more power. And so they are the ones that tend to hold the control. That may be perceived having control over the outcome. But with boundaries, it still has to be established, but there's still also establishing that expectation of, if I ask you to adhere to my boundary, you can't try to control me by not adhering to them. So even if it's about proximity, because that's a lot of times where boundaries, they can get blurred or they can be held very rigid. So like, how close want you to be when you talk to me. If you're in a position of power and you step over that boundary, I can I could misinterpret that and saying that you are intimidating, or you are using your position or leverage to make me do something, which that's when we come into more some situations that could cause lawsuits, it can cause hostile work environments, different things like that. So you have to be very conscious of the power and control dynamics within our work relationships, most definitely.
That's something definitely that we have to talk about with there's many power differentials between
Hmm.
circumstances, and you have to understand where you where you stand in that
Hmm.
relationship.
Yes.
Something that we do as counselors is we understand that we have to say on a on a regular basis that I'm not the expert here. We
Hmm.
are on the same playing field. We're
Yeah.
here to work together. I got some knowledge on how to, for in psychology and human behavior, but
Hmm.
you are the expert on yourself. So I
On
can
your
give
life.
you
Yeah.
suggestions and thoughts and massage this in order to get you to move, but you make decisions on what
Hmm.
you should do for your life and what we are doing in our time together. Um, that is also within many circumstances where you have to be cognizant of the power differential that's happening there.
Hmm.
Even though
Yeah.
you may say in yourself, oh no, there's no power differential, or maybe you don't want there to be a power differential,
But it's
that
still it.
other person could feel that
Hmm.
even though you're saying that it's not one. That
Yes.
other you can say to people, well, they have the right to have, let's say, work life balance. They have a right to have work life balance. Yes, they can have it. But if they feel like it's not something that they could do
Hmm.
because there's a power, or there's this feelings that I really don't have that.
Hmm.
It is for them to be courageous enough to
Yes.
decide to establish some, and
Hmm.
then really hold true to it, to actually prove and say, hey, let's see if I really am supported with my work life balance.
Hmm. Yes.
And then for people who have the authority in the relationship, they just have to be very cognizant of how they interact, but they also do not have to manage other people's emotions. They have
Yeah.
to decide for themselves how they're going to interact. Like there's only so much that they can do to help them feel safe.
Mhm.
You have to also have to bring your own safety. Let's talk
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
Oh, now that's a case in point of discipline. You got to be disciplined with yourself, and actually safety is a internal thing. You have to decide for yourself that you're safe, and that that you have circumstances around you that are safe. If
Hmm.
you are in a circumstance where you're worried about things, or you've had trauma and you have concerns and you've had experiences that people did not treat you well, you're bringing in things that may not be here, that's coming up in how
Yes.
you're being treated right now, that you have to deal with and manage.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have anything to do with somebody else and what they're saying. You have to set and take ownership of
Yes.
your own boundaries, your own safety. Speak up and assert yourself.
Hmm.
When I said something about that, I noticed you might have wanted to say something about having personal safety.
Yeah. It's when you think about um, when the word personal, it means for the person. So you have to be able to experience and put up, as we talk about, boundaries around your own personal safety. So if you um, tease through yourself that a situation is not feeling safe, you have to one check to why it's not, but then also being able to use your I feel statements to let someone know. So you may say, I feel anxious when you come running into my office to have me help you with something. I would like for you to slow down and speak before coming in. Or you bombard me with it. I remember I had a supervisor, and this is how I had to set a boundary with him. Was he was the type of person, as soon as you hit the door, before you could sit down, put your bags down, he's at your desk talking. For me, I'm the type of person is that I need to put my belongings down, turn my computer on, and kind of get acclimated to the environment. So what I had to say to him is I said one day he came to my office, came to my desk, and he was just, and I said, hold on for just a moment, and I had to use my I feel statement, and I said I feel overwhelmed when you bum rush me as soon as I get to my desk. I would like for you to wait until I put my things away and turn on my computer before you tell me what you need to tell me. He thanked me. He was like, "Oh my God." He said, "I didn't know." He said, "I was just been waiting and I'm so excited." And I'm like, "But you," I'm an introvert anyway, so I'm like, "Whoa, goodness, all of this coming to." It was startled me. But you have to be mindful of how people interact and how people show up. And when you have your own personal boundaries, when you have discipline within yourself, you're able to know what needs to be set in place. And then you also know how to communicate it.
And like you said, you have to know yourself, right? You have to
It's very
know.
important.
You had to know that you were overwhelmed. You
Oh,
had to know
yeah.
how to address him in a
Hmm.
respectful way that would honor him as a person, but
Hmm.
also get your point across how you wanted
Yes.
him. Maybe give me a moment
Hmm.
before we get going in the day. Also,
Yes.
you mentioned I'm an introvert. That means you know yourself. Like that's not him also knowing you. If
No.
he knew
Yeah.
that about you, he would have never, right?
Yeah.
But That's not, but it seems like he was an extrovert and he was
He
excited,
was.
right?
He was excited. He loved, just like he was always on team. Always.
Yes. So that goes into really people who are in a relationship with you, you know them
Hmm.
and they will honor your boundaries
Yes.
and they know you. And
Hmm.
so they will even sometimes even sense that there's something going on in you.
Hmm.
But it
Yes.
is still your responsibility to assert yourself and say, I need this particular thing. I need this
Yes.
expectation.
Communicate.
People don't know unless you tell
You
them.
tell
For
them.
example, I lived with a lady, she didn't like water in the sink. Yes, water in the sink. I said, okay, even though I don't understand this boundary,
Hmm.
because I respect you, I'm going to make sure that every time I ran water in this sink, I wipe the sink down for you.
Okay.
Okay. And so
Yep.
that's just, that is holding someone's boundary that you care for and
Hmm.
that you care about or doing the things that they ask of you is not necessary. It doesn't take that much for you to do that for that person,
Yes.
especially if they explicitly said that's what they need in order to
Hmm.
feel what they need to feel. It's not a hard thing to do if you honor them, but if you don't respect them, if you have a problem with hitting up against somebody's boundary, that means you don't respect that person. So then this
That
also
causes
helps you to know who should be around you and who
hmm
should not be around you,
yes.
who
Need to
you should be
establish that.
interacting with and who you shouldn't be interacting with. And so that's another reason why a lot of people don't want to do boundaries and I feel statements is because you learn that people who are supposed to be close to you or they're supposed to be close or people who are you're working with and interacting with on a regular basis, they actually don't honor and respect you the way that you would like them to. And it's
Yes.
a lot of training that you have to do in
Hmm.
order to get them to treat you in the ways that you would like them to. But guess what? It's worth it
Yes.
because the more boundaries you have, the more that you know yourself and boundaries that you have around how you interact and people around you know them, you will feel so safe in your whole life and you
Yes.
will feel more authentic to yourself.
Mhm.
And it's easier to assert your boundaries when you have people who naturally will do that for you. Some
Yes.
people have never experienced it. Like they've never experienced people that truly hold their boundaries for them. Okay, you have this boundary, fine.
Yeah.
It feels so safe and so good. And they will actually lower their boundaries because you were willing to abide by them. But
Yes.
people have to at first abide by them,
That's
and you
true.
have to uphold them. Any other thoughts, Dr. Dangerfield?
No, I think we covered it.
Yes. So just a reiteration, boundaries are behaviors and things that you set for others to do, and maybe even behaviors that you do and your own discipline in order to be safe.
Yes.
And you have to own your own safety and make sure that you uphold your safety. If you have any kind of inkling that something doesn't make you feel safe, that's your responsibility to hold that emotion and assert yourself and let a person or a circumstance know that this does not make me feel the way that I deserve to feel.
That's
And we all can have the kind of work and life and safety that we deserve and the balance that we deserve. But it also takes a lot of your own self work.
yes.
Okay. You all, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Dr. Dangerfield and Erica Kesse. Have a good rest of your day.